New Year's Eve, the night when millions of people around the world gather to celebrate, to count down to midnight, to welcome a fresh start with champagne, fireworks, and hope for the year ahead. But for some people, New Year's Eve doesn't bring celebration. It brings terror, because while most of us are focused on the clock striking 12, watching the ball drop, kissing loved ones at midnight, something else is happening in the darkness. Something that waits for that one moment when everyone is distracted, when everyone is looking up at the sky, when no one is paying attention to what's happening around them. Tonight, I have 3 true New Year's Eve horror stories that will make you think twice about your midnight celebrations. Stories of people who discovered that the transition from one year to the next can open doors that should remain closed. That midnight on New Year's Eve isn't just symbolic. Sometimes it's literal. So pour yourself a drink, but keep your eyes open. Because when the clock strikes 12, you never know what might be standing behind you in the darkness. Jessica Martinez loved hosting parties. Her Chicago apartment wasn't huge, but it was perfect for gatherings. High ceilings, hardwood floors, and big windows overlooking the city. On December 31st, 2017, she decided to throw a New Year's Eve party. Nothing fancy, just 20 friends, some food, plenty of drinks, and a good view of the fireworks. By 10 p.m., her apartment was full. Music played, people laughed and danced. Jessica moved through the crowd, making sure everyone had drinks, making sure everyone was having fun. She'd invited her core group of friends, and they'd each brought a few people. Some faces she recognized, some she didn't, but that was normal for parties. At 11:30 p.m., Jessica turned up the volume on the TV so everyone could watch the countdown show from Times Square. People gathered around, drinks in hand, already practicing their countdown. 30 minutes until the new year. 30 minutes until 2018. At 11:58 p.m., someone knocked on her door. Jessica was in the kitchen refilling the chip bowl. She heard the knock over the noise of the party and the TV. 3 sharp raps. She wiped her hands on a towel and walked to the door, expecting a late arrival or maybe a neighbor complaining about the noise. She opened the door. A man stood in the hallway. He was tall, maybe 6 feet, wearing an old-fashioned suit. Not vintage in a trendy way. Old-fashioned in a way that looked genuinely dated. The suit was dark gray, the cut from decades ago. His shirt was white with a stiff collar. His shoes were polished black leather, the kind with pointed toes that people don't wear anymore. His face was unremarkable. Middle-aged, clean-shaven, pale skin, dark hair slicked back. But his eyes were strange. They didn't quite focus on Jessica. They seemed to look past her, into the apartment, at something she couldn't see. "Can I help you?" Jessica asked. The man smiled. It was a polite smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I heard you were having a party. May I join you for the countdown?" Jessica hesitated. She didn't know this man, but parties in apartment buildings were like that sometimes. People heard music and wanted to join. And it was New Year's Eve, a night for being generous. Sure," Jessica said, stepping aside. "Come on in." The man walked past her into the apartment. He moved smoothly, almost gliding. He didn't look around at the decorations or the people. He walked directly to the center of the living room and stood there, facing the TV where the countdown show was playing. Jessica closed the door and followed him. "Can I get you a drink?" she asked. The man didn't respond. He just stood there, hands at his sides, watching the TV. On the screen, the ball was rising above Times Square, preparing for its descent at midnight. Jessica's friend Marcus walked up next to her. "Who's that?" he asked quietly. "I don't know," Jessica admitted. "He just knocked and asked to join the countdown." Marcus frowned. "That's weird. You want me to ask him to leave?" Jessica looked at the man standing in the center of her living room. Something about him made her uncomfortable, but she couldn't articulate what. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He wasn't bothering anyone. He was just standing there, watching, waiting. "It's fine," Jessica said. "It's just for a few minutes. After midnight, if he doesn't leave, we'll ask him to go." The TV announcer's voice grew louder. 2 minutes until the new year, everyone. The party guests started gathering around the TV, drinks raised, ready for the countdown. The man in the old-fashioned suit remained perfectly still in the center of the room. People moved around him, creating a circle with him at its center, but no one seemed to notice how strange that was. 1 minute, the announcer shouted. Jessica's heart was beating faster than usual. She told herself it was just the excitement of New Year's Eve, but something felt wrong. The man hadn't moved, hadn't blinked, just stood there, staring at the clock on the screen. 30 seconds. The room erupted in excited chatter. People started the countdown early, unable to contain themselves. 20 seconds. Jessica watched the man. His lips were moving now, but he wasn't making sound. He was counting too, she realized. Silently counting down. 10, 9, 8. The whole room joined in, shouting the numbers. 7, 6, 5. The man's eyes closed. 4, 3, 2. His hands clenched into fists. 1. Happy New Year. The room exploded with cheers. Fireworks burst outside the windows. People hugged and kissed and toasted. Jessica turned to hug Marcus, and when she turned back, the man was looking directly at her. His eyes were open now, and they were completely black. Not just the pupils, the entire eye, black from edge to edge, like pools of ink. Jessica's blood turned to ice. The man walked toward her, moving through the celebrating crowd like they weren't there. People seemed to part for him without realizing it. He stopped inches from Jessica's face and leaned close. His breath smelled like old paper and dust. "It's time," he whispered. Then he turned and walked toward Jessica's bedroom. The door was partially open. Without hesitation, he walked inside. Jessica stood frozen for a moment, then followed him, pushing through her confused and celebrating friends. She reached her bedroom and looked inside. The man was standing in front of her closet. The closet door was closed. He reached out and opened it. Inside was Jessica's normal closet. Clothes hanging, shoes on the floor, boxes on the shelf above. The man stepped inside the closet. He didn't push clothes aside or duck under the hanging garments. He just walked forward into the closet as if it were a doorway, and he disappeared. Jessica rushed forward. She pulled clothes aside. The closet was small, maybe 4 feet deep. There was nowhere to hide, but the man was gone. Her hands were shaking as she examined the back wall of the closet. Solid. No hidden doors. No panels. Just drywall. She knocked on it. Completely solid. Then she looked down and saw them. Wet footprints on the floor of her closet. 2 sets. Entering the closet. Stopping at the back wall. But not exiting. The footprints were dark. Like the man had been walking through water, or something else. Jessica crouched down and touched one. Her finger came away damp and cold. She smelled it. Nothing. Just water, maybe. Marcus appeared in the doorway. "Jess? You okay? Where'd that weird guy go?" "He walked into my closet," Jessica said, her voice barely audible. "He just walked into it and disappeared." Marcus looked at her like she was drunk. "What? That's impossible." "Look." Jessica pointed at the footprints. Marcus crouched down next to her. They both stared at the wet prints leading into the closet and stopping at the back wall. Marcus reached out and touched the wall. Solid. He knocked on it. Nothing hollow. Just normal drywall backed by the apartment's concrete structure. "This is insane," Marcus said. "Where did he go?" Jessica didn't answer. She was staring at the footprints, a terrible thought forming in her mind. She pulled out her phone and took a picture of the prints. Then she stood up and went to her computer in the corner of her bedroom. She opened her photo archive. Last New Year's Eve, she'd thrown a party too. She'd taken lots of pictures. She scrolled through them, looking for something specific. And then she found it. A photo from December 31st, 2016, at 11:45 p.m., before midnight, before the countdown. The photo showed her bedroom in the background, and there, barely visible in the frame, was her closet door. It was open, and on the floor, clearly visible in the high-resolution image, were wet footprints. The exact same footprints, in the exact same positions. Jessica's hands started shaking so badly she almost dropped her phone. She zoomed in on the old photo. The footprints were identical. Same size, same spacing, same pattern. They'd been there 1 year ago, before the man had appeared tonight, before he'd walked into her closet. "Marcus," Jessica whispered, "look at this." She showed him the photo from last year. Marcus's face went pale. "That's impossible. Those are the same footprints. How can they be from last year?" Jessica pulled up more photos. New Year's Eve 2015. There, in one background shot, the same footprints in her closet, faint but visible. She went back further. New Year's Eve 2014. The same footprints. "He's been coming here," Jessica said, her voice shaking. "Every New Year's Eve, walking into my closet, leaving these footprints. I just never noticed before." "But where does he go?" Marcus asked. "And who is he?" Jessica didn't have answers. She went back to the party, but she couldn't celebrate anymore. She watched her friends drink and laugh and welcome 2018. But all she could think about was the man in the old-fashioned suit. The man with the black eyes. The man who walked into walls and left footprints from the past. Over the next few days, Jessica did research. She talked to the building manager and learned that her apartment had been occupied by different tenants going back decades. She found records showing that on December 31st, 1987, a man had died in this apartment. Heart attack at 11:59 p.m. Dead before midnight. Dead before the new year. The records included a photo from his driver's license. Jessica stared at it for a long time. It was him. The man in the old-fashioned suit. The man who had stood in her living room and counted down to midnight. The man who had whispered "it's time" and walked into her closet. She moved out 3 weeks later. She couldn't stay in that apartment knowing that every New Year's Eve, something would knock on her door. Something that had been dead for 30 years. Something that kept trying to reach midnight. To cross from 1 year to the next. To finish the countdown it had never completed. The new tenants reported nothing unusual, but Jessica still has the photos, still has the evidence of those footprints appearing year after year. And every New Year's Eve, at 11:58 p.m., she makes sure she's nowhere near that apartment building, because she knows that at midnight he'll be there, standing in that closet, leaving his wet footprints, waiting for something that never comes. David Chen had always wanted to experience New Year's Eve in Times Square. He'd seen it on TV every year. The massive crowd, the glittering ball, the energy of 1 million people counting down together. On December 31st, 2019, he finally made it happen. David lived in Brooklyn, so getting to Manhattan wasn't difficult. He arrived at Times Square around 7 p.m., knowing he needed to stake out a spot early. The crowd was already huge. Thousands of people packed into the blocked-off streets, bundled in winter coats, holding thermoses of hot chocolate and coffee, settling in for the long wait until midnight. David found a spot about halfway down the crowd, close enough to see the big screens but far enough back that he wasn't completely crushed. He made small talk with the people around him. couple from Ohio, a family from California, a group of college students from New Jersey. Everyone was excited. Everyone was friendly. It was exactly what David had hoped for. The hours passed slowly. It was cold, and standing still made it worse. But David didn't mind. The energy of the crowd kept him warm. At 10 p.m., performances started on the stage below the ball. Musicians and celebrities. The crowd cheered and sang along. David felt like he was part of something special. At 11 p.m., he noticed her for the first time. A woman standing directly to his left. She hadn't been there before, he was certain. The crowd was packed so tightly that people couldn't really move, but somehow she'd appeared next to him. She was wearing a dark coat with the hood up, hiding most of her face. But David could see her eyes. They were focused on him. Not on the stage. Not on the screens. On him. Great crowd, right? David said, trying to be friendly. The woman didn't respond. She just kept staring. David felt uncomfortable. He turned back to face the stage, trying to ignore her. But he could feel her eyes on him. Constant. Unblinking. It made his skin crawl. At 11:30 p.m., the crowd's energy intensified. People started chanting, started taking out their phones to record the moment. David pulled out his phone too, wanting to capture the countdown. But when he looked down at his screen, he could see the woman's reflection. She was still staring at him. She hadn't looked away once in 30 minutes. "Are you okay?" David asked, turning to face her. The woman tilted her head slightly. "Are you?" Her voice was strange, flat, empty, like someone reading words without understanding them. "Yeah, I'm fine," David said. "Just excited for the new year." The woman's lips moved into something that might have been a smile, but it didn't look right. It looked like someone who had seen smiles but didn't quite understand how they worked. "New year," she repeated. "New death." David laughed nervously. "What? Death?" the woman said. "Your death." David's stomach dropped. This was New York. There were crazy people everywhere. This was probably just someone drunk or high or mentally ill. He should ignore her, should turn away, but something in her eyes held him frozen. "That's not funny," David said quietly. "It's not meant to be." The woman leaned closer. Her breath smelled like nothing. Not good, not bad, just nothing. Like breathing near a mannequin. "You're going to die this year, 52 weeks from now. Almost to the minute." "Okay, you need to back off," David said, his voice louder now. People around them were starting to notice. 11:59 p.m. The woman continued. "December 31st, 2020. That's when it happens. That's when you die." "Get away from me," David said, pushing past people to get some distance. The crowd was so packed that he couldn't move far, but he managed to squeeze several people away from the woman. He looked back. She was still standing in the same spot, still watching him, still smiling that wrong smile. On the screens above, the countdown began. 10 minutes until the new year. David tried to shake off the encounter. Just a crazy person. Nothing more. He focused on the stage, on the music, on the giant ball above that would drop in 10 minutes. But he couldn't stop glancing back at where the woman had been standing. She was still there, still watching. The crowd around her was celebrating, cheering, but she stood perfectly still, like a statue, like something that wasn't quite alive. At 11:59 p.m., the final countdown began. 60, 59, 58. The crowd roared, counting down together. David joined in, trying to lose himself in the moment, trying to forget the woman's words. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year. Fireworks exploded. Confetti fell from buildings. The ball finished its descent. 2020 had arrived. People were hugging, kissing, crying with joy. David turned to high-five the people near him, caught up in the euphoria. And then he saw her again. She was closer now, much closer, only a few feet away, despite the packed crowd. And she was pointing at him, just pointing, her finger aimed at his chest like a gun. David pushed through the crowd, desperate to get away. He fought his way toward the edge of the celebration zone, not caring who he bumped or shoved. He just needed distance, needed to escape. He made it to a side street and kept running until he reached the subway. He didn't look back, didn't want to see if she was following. He just wanted to go home. The year 2020 was terrible for everyone. The pandemic, lockdowns, isolation. David spent most of the year working from home, barely leaving his apartment. He dated a woman named Lisa for a few months in the summer. They broke up in October. Life continued, strange and difficult and lonely, like it did for millions of others. David didn't think much about the woman from Times Square. By March, he'd almost forgotten about her. By June, she was just a weird memory, a crazy person in a crowd. Nothing more. But on December 31st, 2020, David remembered. He was at a small gathering at his friend Tom's house in New Jersey. Just 6 people, socially distanced, wearing masks when they weren't eating. A quiet New Year's Eve. Nothing like the previous year. At 11 p.m., David decided to head home. He wanted to be in his own apartment at midnight. Wanted to start 2021 in his own space. He said goodbye to his friends and got in his car. The drive from Tom's house back to Brooklyn normally took about 45 minutes. David had made it dozens of times. He knew the route perfectly. It was 11:15 p.m. He'd be home before midnight with time to spare. He was driving through Newark when it happened. Car ran a red light. David saw it for maybe half a second before impact. A sedan traveling at high speed, coming from his right, the driver clearly drunk or distracted or both. David's brain registered what was about to happen, but his body couldn't react fast enough. The sedan slammed into the driver's side of David's car. The sound was deafening. Metal crumpling, glass shattering. David's airbag deployed, smashing into his face. His car spun, hit a pole, came to rest on the sidewalk. Everything went silent. David couldn't breathe. His chest felt crushed. He couldn't move his legs. Something was very wrong. He tasted blood in his mouth. The world was spinning. Distant sirens. People shouting. Someone pulled open his door. Paramedics. They were talking to him, but their voices sounded far away, like he was underwater. They were cutting away his seatbelt, pulling him from the wreckage, laying him on a stretcher. David tried to stay conscious, tried to focus. He looked up at the night sky. Fireworks were starting somewhere. Early celebrations. He looked at his watch, the face cracked but still working. 11:59 p.m. 52 weeks. Almost to the minute. Just like she'd said. David's vision was fading. The paramedics were working on him frantically. He could hear their urgent voices. Blood pressure dropping. Possible internal bleeding. Need to get him to the hospital now. And then David saw her, standing at the edge of the road, 20 feet away. The same woman from Times Square. The same dark coat. The same hood. The same empty eyes. She was watching him. Just watching. Not helping. Not reacting. Just standing there like she'd been waiting. David tried to speak. Tried to point. But his body wasn't responding. His vision narrowed to a tunnel. All he could see was her face. Those eyes. That wrong smile.
No, David whispered.
Not yet. The woman tilted her head, exactly like she had 1 year ago. Yes, she said, though she was too far away for him to hear. He saw her lips move, saw the word form. Now. And then the paramedics saved his life. David flatlined twice in the ambulance. They revived him both times. He went into surgery at 12:27 a.m., January 1st, 2021. He'd made it past midnight, past the moment she'd predicted. He spent 2 weeks in the hospital. Broken ribs,
Collapsed lung.
internal bleeding, multiple surgeries. But he survived. Against significant odds, he survived. The drunk driver was arrested. Blood alcohol level 3 times the legal limit. If they'd hit 30 seconds earlier or later, the angle would have been different. David might not have survived. But he did survive. And he never saw the woman again. David doesn't know what she was. Doesn't know if she was predicting his death or causing it. Doesn't know if her prediction failing means he broke fate or if she was just wrong. He only knows that for 1 year, he lived with a countdown clock he couldn't see. And when that clock reached 0, he came within seconds of dying. He doesn't go to Times Square anymore. Doesn't celebrate New Year's Eve in crowds. Every December 31st, he stays home. Doors locked, curtains drawn, waiting for midnight to pass. Waiting to see if she'll come back with a new prediction. A new death date. A new countdown. So far, she hasn't appeared again. But David knows she's out there. Somewhere in the crowd. Watching. Waiting. Pointing at someone else. Whispering a date and time. Starting a countdown that might end in death. And every New Year's Eve, at 11:59 p.m., David holds his breath. And he survives another year. Sarah Williams hated New Year's Eve. Not for any particular reason. She just found the holiday overrated. The forced celebration. The pressure to have fun. The inevitable disappointment when midnight came and nothing really changed. So on December 31st, 2018, Sarah decided to stay home alone. She lived in a small apartment in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood. It was a quiet building, mostly young professionals and students. Sarah was 28, worked as a graphic designer, and was perfectly content spending the evening with her cat, a bottle of wine, and a good book. She made herself dinner around 7 p.m. Pasta with pesto. She poured a glass of wine and settled onto her couch. Outside, she could hear the city getting louder, people heading to parties, cars honking, distant music. But inside her apartment, everything was quiet and peaceful. At 9 p.m., she texted her friend Monica, "Happy almost New Year. Thanks for understanding about me skipping your party."
Mónica replied, "No worries.
Stay safe. See you in 2019. Sarah smiled and put her phone on the coffee table. She opened her book and read for the next few hours. Her cat, Winston, curled up beside her. Everything was perfect. At 11:55 p.m., Sarah got up to refill her wine glass. She could hear fireworks starting outside. People were impatient, setting them off early. She walked to her kitchen window and looked out. The streets below were busy with people heading to view parties and celebrations. She checked the time on her microwave. 11:57 p.m. 3 minutes until the new year. Sarah raised her wine glass to her reflection in the window. "Here's to 2019, she said quietly. May you be marginally less terrible than 2018. At exactly midnight, fireworks exploded across the city. The sky lit up with color. Sarah could hear people cheering in the streets and in neighboring apartments. She smiled despite herself. Maybe New Year's Eve wasn't so bad when you experienced it from a distance. Her phone rang. Sarah walked back to the living room and picked up her phone from the coffee table. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Who calls at midnight on New Year's Eve? But curiosity won out. She answered, "Hello." For a moment, there was only silence. Then she heard breathing. Heavy, ragged breathing, like someone who'd been running. "Hello," Sarah said again. "Who is this?" A voice spoke, a woman's voice.
Familiar somehow.
"Sarah?" "Yes? Who is this?" The voice was shaking, crying. "Sarah, it's me. It's you. Listen to me very carefully. You need to listen." Sarah's blood went cold. The voice wasn't just familiar. It was identical. It was her own voice. She was listening to herself speak. "This isn't funny," Sarah said. "I don't know what kind of prank this is." "It's not a prank," the voice screamed. Sarah's own voice, screaming at her. "Please, you have to listen. You can't go outside tonight. No matter what happens, no matter who asks, don't go outside. Promise me. Promise yourself. Don't go outside." Sarah's hand was shaking. "I don't understand. How are you?" "There's no time to explain. Just don't go outside. Someone's going to knock on your door at 12:15. Don't answer it. Don't open the door. Stay inside. Lock everything. Promise me." "This is insane," Sarah whispered. "I know how this sounds. I know you think you're going crazy, but I'm you. I'm calling from the future, from years ahead. And if you go outside tonight, everything changes. Everything ends. Please, I'm begging you, don't go outside." The line went dead. Sarah stood in her living room, phone in hand, shaking. That had been her voice. Not someone doing an impression. Not a recording. Her actual voice, speaking words she hadn't said. It was impossible. Completely impossible. She checked her phone. The call had lasted 42 seconds. Unknown number. No way to call back. She tried anyway. The number didn't exist. Sarah sat down on her couch. Her cat jumped into her lap, sensing her distress. She petted Winston mechanically, trying to process what had just happened. A hallucination? Too much wine? But she'd only had 2 glasses. Not enough to make her hallucinate. She looked at the time on her phone.
12:03 a.m.
12 minutes until 12:15. Until someone would supposedly knock on her door. This was ridiculous. It had to be a prank. Someone with voice-changing software. Someone messing with her. There was no such thing as calls from the future. That only happened in movies. But the voice had known her name. Had known she was home alone. Had known specific details. Sarah got up and checked her front door. It was locked. She had a chain lock and a deadbolt. Both were engaged. She looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. Everything was normal. She went to her windows and closed all the curtains. She didn't know why. It just felt safer. She sat back down on her couch and watched the clock on her phone.
12:10 a.m.
5 minutes. Sarah told herself nothing would happen. At 12:16, she'd laugh about this. She'd text Monica tomorrow and tell her about the weird prank call. They'd have a good laugh.
12:12 a.m.
3 minutes. Sarah's heart was pounding. This was stupid. She was letting a prank call freak her out. But something about that voice, the desperation in it, the terror, it had sounded so real.
12:14 a.m.
1 minute. Sarah stared at her door. Nothing. See? Nothing was going to happen. This was all. Knock. 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 Sarah jumped, her phone flying from her hands. 3 sharp knocks on her door. At exactly 12:15 a.m. Just like the voice had said. She sat frozen on her couch. Winston hissed and ran into the bedroom. The knocking came again. Louder this time. More insistent. "Sarah?" A voice called from the other side of the door. "Sarah, it's me. From 4B. I need your help." Sarah recognized the voice. Brian, her neighbor from 2 floors down. Nice guy. Worked in tech. They chatted in the elevator a few times. "What do you need?" Sarah called out, not moving from her couch. "It's an emergency. My apartment's flooding. I need to shut off the water main, but I can't reach it. I need someone tall. Can you help? Please." It sounded reasonable, plausible, a legitimate emergency, the kind of thing neighbors helped with. Sarah stood up and walked toward the door. Her hand reached for the deadbolt. And then she remembered. Don't go outside. No matter what happens. No matter who asks. Her hand stopped. "Brian, I'm sorry, I can't. Can you call building maintenance?" Silence from the other side of the door. Then, "Sarah, please. It's really bad. Water's everywhere. I need help now. Call maintenance." Sarah repeated. "They have an emergency number. It's on the bulletin board by the mailboxes." More silence. Then the knocking started again. Harder. Faster. Not like someone asking for help. Like someone trying to break in. "Sarah, open the door." The voice was different now. Still Brian's voice, but wrong. Flat. Empty. Like someone reading lines without emotion. Sarah backed away from the door. The knocking continued. Faster. Louder. The door shook in its frame. Then suddenly it stopped. Complete silence. Sarah waited. 1 minute. 2 minutes. 5 minutes. Nothing. She crept to the peephole and looked out. The hallway was empty. She didn't sleep that night. She sat on her couch with all the lights on, staring at the door, waiting for something to happen. But nothing did. The next morning, January 1st, Sarah went downstairs to apartment 4B. She knocked on Brian's door. No answer. She checked the building directory. Apartment 4B, Brian Kowalski. But when she asked the building manager, she was told that Brian had moved out 3 months ago. The apartment was currently vacant. Sarah went back to her apartment and locked herself inside. She tried to figure out what had happened, who had knocked on her door, what would have happened if she'd opened it. 3 days later, she was checking her mail when she ran into Mrs. Chen from 3C. "Happy New Year, dear," Mrs. Chen said. "Did you have a nice, quiet evening?" "Mostly," Sarah said. "Although someone knocked on my door at 12:15, said there was a flooding emergency." Mrs. Chen frowned. "A flooding emergency? On New Year's? How strange. Did you help them?" "No, I didn't open the door." "Good," Mrs. Chen said quietly. "Very good. Why do you say that?" Mrs. Chen looked around to make sure they were alone in the mailroom. "This is an old building, dear. Sometimes strange things happen here, especially on certain nights. New Year's Eve, Halloween, the summer solstice, nights when things are thin. If someone knocks at a strange hour and something feels off, it's usually best not to answer." "Has this happened before?" Sarah asked. Mrs. Chen nodded slowly. "Oh yes, not often, but yes. There was a young man who lived here about 10 years ago. New Year's Eve, someone knocked on his door at midnight, said they needed help with something. He opened the door. They found him 3 days later. He'd walked out onto the roof in the middle of winter, in his pajamas and frozen to death. The door to the roof had been locked from the inside. No one could figure out how he'd gotten up there." Sarah felt sick. "What was knocking?" "No one knows, dear. This building was built in 1923. A lot of history here. A lot of stories. Some of them aren't very pleasant." Mrs. Chen patted Sarah's arm. "But you were smart. You didn't open the door. That's the important thing." Sarah went back to her apartment in a daze. She kept thinking about the phone call. Her own voice calling from the future. Warning her. Saving her. Had it been real? Had some future version of herself figured out how to call backward through time? Or had it been something else? Something that knew what was coming? Something that wanted her to survive? Sarah doesn't know. She only knows that every New Year's Eve since 2018, at exactly midnight, her phone rings. A known number. When she answers, she hears her own voice. Sometimes it's warning her about something specific. Sometimes it just says, "Stay safe tonight." Sometimes it says nothing at all, just breathes into the phone for a few seconds before hanging up. Sarah has learned to listen. She stays home every New Year's Eve, keeps her doors locked, doesn't answer unexpected knocks. And so far, she's survived. But she wonders sometimes, if she hadn't answered that first call, if she'd opened the door at 12:15, where would she be now? What would have happened? She doesn't want to know. She just wants to keep hearing that phone ring at midnight. Keep getting warnings from whatever version of herself is calling. Keep surviving 1 year at a time, because something out there knows her name, knows where she lives, knows how to sound like people she trusts. And every New Year's Eve it tries again, knocking, calling, waiting for her to make a mistake. But Sarah won't. She'll keep answering that midnight call, keep listening to herself, keep staying inside when everything tells her to go out. It's the only way to make sure she'll be around to make that call herself someday, to warn her past self, to close the loop, to survive. 3 stories, 3 New Year's Eves, 3 impossible encounters. Jessica Martinez, who watched a stranger disappear into her closet, leaving footprints that had been there for years. David Chen, who was warned he'd die in 1 year and nearly did, at the exact moment predicted. And Sarah Williams, who received a call from her future self and survived because she listened. These stories remind us that midnight on New Year's Eve is more than just a moment in time. It's a threshold, a crossing point where past, present, and future blur together, where warnings can travel through years, where something waits in the darkness while we're distracted by our celebrations. So this New Year's Eve, when the countdown begins and everyone's eyes are on the sky, take a moment. Look around. Check who's standing near you, and if a stranger asks to join you, if someone whispers a warning, if your phone rings at midnight, pay very close attention. Because these stories are true. They happen to real people, and they could happen to you. This has been Mr. Night Scares. Happy New Year. And whatever you do, be careful what you invite into your life when the clock strikes 12.